If you want to win in life, think like the 1%. Because average people chase comfort, while the 1% chase growth. Average people want success, but the 1% become the person success is attracted to. And the moment you understand this difference, nothing will ever look the same again. Most people want extraordinary lives while keeping ordinary habits. Most people want success without becoming successful people. Most people want results without changing themselves. They want the body without the discipline, the wealth without the patience, the respect without the standards. They want the destination, but they refuse the road. Sit with that for a moment, because somewhere inside you, there's a version of your life you've imagined. Maybe late at night, maybe in a quiet moment between tasks. A version where you're stronger, sharper, more respected, more in control. And then morning comes, and the alarm goes off, and that version disappears. Replaced by the same routines, the same hesitations, the same you. This is not because you're incapable. It's because most people are fighting the wrong battle. They think the problem is external, not enough time, not enough money, not enough opportunity. But the real battle, the only battle that has ever mattered, is internal. It's the battle between who you are right now and who you're capable of becoming. And most people lose that battle every single day without even realizing a war is happening. Let's talk about why. Comfort is a drug. And most people are addicted to it without even realizing it. Think about your own mornings. The alarm goes off, and there's a voice soft, reasonable, convincing that says, just 5 more minutes. And those 5 minutes feel harmless. They feel like self-care, like rest. But that voice is not your friend. That voice is the voice of the version of you that wants to stay exactly as it is. Because comfort doesn't want you to grow. Growth requires change, and change threatens comfort's existence. So, comfort whispers, rest now, push later. And later never comes, because later is always another day filled with its own comfortable choices. Later is a myth the mind tells itself to avoid the discomfort of now. And every time you listen to that whisper, you're not just losing 5 minutes. You're casting a vote that says, I am someone who chooses ease over growth. And votes accumulate, they become patterns. Patterns become identity, and identity becomes destiny. Instant gratification has rewired the average mind in ways most people don't even notice. Why wait for something good in 6 months when you can feel something okay in 6 seconds? A notification, a scroll, a video, a snack. Each one small, each one harmless on its own. But here's what's actually happening beneath the surface. Your brain is being trained. Trained to expect reward without effort. Trained to feel discomfort the moment something requires patience. And slowly, the ability to delay gratification, the single most important predictor of long-term success, begins to erode. Think about what this does over years. A person who has trained their brain to need instant rewards will struggle to sit with a difficult task for more than a few minutes before reaching for their phone. They'll struggle to save money because spending feels good now and saving feels like nothing. They'll struggle to stay in a relationship through hard times because the discomfort of conflict feels unbearable compared to the ease of walking away. Every area of life touched by the same broken muscle. The muscle of patience, the muscle of delayed reward. And most people never even identify this as the root cause. They just feel stuck without knowing why. Procrastination is not laziness. This is one of the most important things you will ever understand about yourself. Procrastination is fear wearing a disguise. Fear of failure, because if you never finish the thing, you can never fail at it. Fear of effort, because starting means admitting the gap between where you are and where you want to be. fear of finding out you're capable of more, because then you'd have to actually become that person, and that's terrifying in its own way. So the task gets pushed. I'll start Monday. Monday becomes a sacred day in the mind of someone who procrastinates a mythical reset point where everything will suddenly be different. But Monday comes, and the same fears are still there, so it gets pushed again. Next Monday. And this cycle can repeat for months, for years, for decades, until tomorrow becomes a place where dreams quietly go to die, not with a dramatic ending, but with a slow, silent fade that the person barely notices until they look back and realize how much time has passed. Distraction is the silent killer of potential, and it has never been more dangerous than it is right now. The average person's attention is being sold, fragmented, and consumed by everything except their own life. Every app, every platform, every notification is engineered by very smart people with very large budgets to capture and hold your attention. Not because they care about you, because your attention is the product being sold. And so, hours disappear. Not in one sitting that would be obvious. They disappear in fragments. 15 minutes here, 20 minutes there. A quick check that turns into 45 minutes you can't account for. Days disappear this way. Weeks. And at the end of it, the person wonders where the time went. The time didn't go anywhere mysterious. It was taken deliberately, systematically, one scroll at a time. And the cruel part is, it doesn't even feel bad in the moment. It feels relaxing. It feels like a break. But it's a break from a life that needed building. Low standards are the quiet poison that most people never diagnose. Here's how it works. When you accept less from yourself, when you tell yourself this is good enough, while knowing it isn't, the universe doesn't argue with you. It simply gives you what you asked for. Less effort produces less results. Less results produce less belief in yourself. Less belief produces even less effort next time. Because why try hard at something you don't believe will work out anyway? It's a loop. A downward spiral disguised as just being realistic. And most people live inside this loop for years, sometimes their entire lives, without ever stepping outside to see the walls they built around themselves. And underneath all of it, lack of self-respect. This is the foundation that everything else is built on, and it's the part most people refuse to look at directly. Because every broken promise to yourself, the workout you skipped, the goal you abandoned, the version of you that you quietly gave up on leaves a mark. Not visible to others, nobody can see it on your face, but felt by you. Felt in the quiet moments, a small voice that says you don't really follow through. And that voice gets louder every year you let it speak uncontested. This is how people stay average. Not through one bad decision that would almost be easier to fix. Through thousands of small surrenders. Small enough to ignore individually, but added together over months and years, they quietly become an identity. And identity is the hardest thing in the world to change. Because identity doesn't feel like a choice. It feels like the truth about who you are. Now, let's talk about the other path. The one less traveled, not because it's hidden, but because it's hard, and most people would rather not see it. The 1% think long term, while others are living for the next hour, the next meal, the next scroll, the next small comfort. The 1% are living for the next decade. They've internalized something most people never grasp. Today is not just today. Today is a vote. A vote for the person they are becoming. Every choice, no matter how small, is a deposit into a future account. And they take that vote seriously, even when no one is watching. Even when the results won't show up for years. Think about what this does to decision-making. When a normal person is offered an easy path and a hard path, they ask, which one feels better right now? When someone with a 1% mindset is offered the same choice, they ask a completely different question. Which one moves me closer to the person I'm building? These are not the same question. and they lead to completely different lives. The 1% embrace discomfort not because they enjoy suffering, but because they've made peace with a truth most people spend their whole lives avoiding. Everything worth having lives on the other side of something difficult. The body you want is on the other side of workouts you don't feel like doing. The skill you want is on the other side of practice that feels frustrating and slow. The life you want is on the other side of conversations you've been avoiding, decisions you've been delaying, and risks you've been too afraid to take. The 1% sacrifice short-term pleasure for long-term power. This sounds simple, but the depth of it is staggering once you really understand it. They say no to things that feel good right now because they can see clearly what those things cost later. They trade an hour of entertainment for an hour of growth. Not because growth feels better in the moment. Honestly, most of the time, it doesn't. Watching something funny feels better than reading a difficult book. Scrolling feels better than practicing a skill you're bad at. But the 1% aren't optimizing for how a moment feels. They're optimizing for how a life turns out. And those are two completely different games. The 1% stay disciplined when motivation disappears, and here's the thing about motivation: it always disappears. It's not reliable. It's not loyal. It shows up in waves, sometimes after watching something inspiring, sometimes after a good night's sleep, sometimes for no reason at all, and it leaves the same way it came, without warning, without apology. The 1% don't build their lives around something that unstable. They build something stronger underneath it. A structure, a standard, a version of themselves that shows up regardless of how they feel on any given day. Discipline is what motivation wishes it could be: consistent, reliable, and present even in the worst conditions. The 1% focus when everyone else is distracted. In a world that is constantly screaming for their attention, they protect it like it's the most valuable resource they own, because it is. They understand a simple but profound truth: where attention goes, energy flows, and where energy flows, results grow. So they guard their mind the way a soldier guards the only weapon they have in a battlefield. Not paranoid, not extreme, just protective, intentional, aware that every minute of attention given away is a minute that can never be reclaimed. And the 1% take responsibility for everything, not because everything that happens to them is their fault, because it isn't. Life is genuinely unfair sometimes. But because responsibility is power and blame is surrender. The moment you say this is on me, you also say this is mine to fix. And that single shift in language, in thinking, in identity is the difference between a life that happens to you and a life you build brick by brick with your own hands. Now imagine someone living this way, not for a day, not for a week as some kind of challenge they'll post about and then abandon, but as a new identity. A new operating system for how they move through the world. Picture the version of you that wakes up before the world demands it, before the noise begins, before the notifications start. In that silence, that rare, sacred silence, they move. Not because they feel like it. Most days they don't feel like it. They move because they decided to, in advance, before the feeling could even cast its vote. The body resists. The mind offers a dozen reasons to stay in bed, and they move anyway. That single act, moving despite resistance, begins to rewrite something deep inside them. It sends a signal every single day that says, I am not controlled by how I feel. I am controlled by what I decide. They train, not for the way it looks in a mirror, though that may come too, but for the way it forges them on the inside. Each repetition is a conversation with themselves. Each one says, I don't quit when it gets hard, and the body listens. But more importantly, so does the mind. Because the body is just the training ground. The real transformation is happening in the part of you that decides what kind of person you are. They study, they build skills while others build excuses. While someone else is explaining why they never had the opportunities, this person is quietly creating their own. They read while others scroll. They learn while others complain about not knowing enough, not having enough, not being given enough. Quietly, invisibly, with no audience and no applause, they are becoming dangerous. Not to other people, to their old limitations, to the version of themselves that used to believe they couldn't. They work with a focus that feels almost unnatural in a distracted world. Phone away. Mind present. One task. Full attention. While the world fragments itself into 1,000 competing pieces, tabs, notifications, half-finished thoughts, they remain whole, singular, present, and in a world this distracted, simply being able to focus has become a kind of quiet superpower. They build discipline like a muscle, because that's exactly what it is. Small promises kept. A glass of water instead of a soda. 10 minutes of reading instead of 10 more minutes of scrolling. A made bed. A finished task. Each kept promise becomes a brick, and brick by brick, they build something most people never build in an entire lifetime. Trust in themselves. Real trust. The kind that doesn't need anyone else's validation, because it's been earned through evidence, not hope. Every great life begins with a decision. Not a perfect one. Not a dramatic, cinematic, life-changing one. Just one honest decision to stop negotiating with weakness. To stop letting the version of you that wants comfort make decisions for the version of you that wants greatness. Every transformation begins with discipline, not motivation. Discipline, the kind that shows up when you don't feel like it, because that's the only kind that actually matters. Motivation is the spark. Discipline is the fire that keeps burning long after the spark is gone. Every success story begins with responsibility. The moment someone stops asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and starts asking, "What am I going to do about it?" That question, that single shift, is the doorway, and it's always open. The only question is whether you walk through it. 1 year from now, you'll either be living the same life, making the same excuses, having the same conversations with yourself about starting soon, telling yourself the same story about why this year was different, why the circumstances weren't right, or you'll become the person you were always capable of becoming. Not a different person. The real one. The one that's been waiting underneath the comfort, the distractions, the delays, this entire time. The choice was never in your talent. It never was. Talent is overrated, and you know this if you're honest with yourself. You've seen talented people waste everything, and you've seen ordinary people, through sheer discipline and consistency, build extraordinary lives. The choice was always in your mindset. It still is. Right now, in this exact moment, as these words reach you. If you're choosing discipline over excuses, comment, "I choose the 1% mindset."